Hello everybody. It's been a while since I did one of these for the main YouTube channel, and there's obviously too much to comment on as far as all the politics and everything goes. I think that Democrats have their hands full dealing with leftism, which is not liberality. It is just really pure insanity. So I'll leave it there. Most people can see that and make up their own minds. There are a few people who are still in denial about things like Jussie Smollett and Ocasio-Cortez, etc. But those people are the minority. I think the vast majority of people are starting to see the writing on the wall. So I see every day I see more comments about Democrats who have left the party because of the fascism on the left. There's some great new podcasts on Dave Rubin with Tim Pool, who was on Joe Rogan with Jack Dorsey, and then of course the supposedly epic, I haven't seen the whole thing, Alex Jones on Joe Rogan. I saw bits and parts, and you know, the guy says a lot of true things, but he says it so crazy that I can see where people really have trouble with him. But apparently it was quite entertaining. I just haven't sat down to watch it. It's 4 hours and 40 minutes long. What I was going to respond to today, and also to tell you about one of my new endeavors, what I was going to respond to is I just discovered he was interviewed on Jesse Lee Peterson, this guy Dan Pena. I never heard of him before. He's a self-made billionaire, millionaire who teaches and makes millionaires, and he does it through what I would call extreme tough love. Actually, I would say that it a lot of times borders on abuse, physical and verbal abuse. And what I wanted to do was contrast like why he's successful and the difference between him and a real alpha male, like Patrick over at Valuetainment. Please subscribe to Valuetainment. That guy does it right. He's a true, calm alpha male who is just good at winning. And excellent interview with a guy who escaped Scientology, and also other excellent interviews with people who matter in the intellectual landscape today, like Dr. Jordan Peterson. So, Dan Pena, he is a double medal just like my master. Now, you would think I might be like, oh, I'm getting PTSD watching this guy as he screams and chokes and punches at people. No, not at all. Some masochistic part of me being a metal element, I actually greatly appreciate that kind of discipline. I think that we need it. When you have an era of, let's not beat around the bush, panty-waist pussies running around pretending that they're strong males because they're extra sensitive, and they're so sensitive that they're sensitive on other people's behalfs, and they do things like ring cowbells in protest during college speeches and interrupt it, but they don't ever have any point, or they stand up and they shout nonsense and they sound like literal non-playable characters from video games. That's not a healthy thing. So in response, it is necessary for the system to introduce false balance. The body does this all the time. If your shoulder starts to rotate forward and you start to get a micro tear and these muscles aren't doing enough, all 4 of your rotator cuff muscles, or 3 out of 4 even, will actually pull the shoulder back into place. Now that's not balance. And later on it could lead to frozen shoulder. But it is a response to another type of imbalance. False yin begets false yang. So, when people look at this Dan Pena, they're going to think toxic masculinity. Well, that's the generation he's from. When somebody can't get their head right, you lay into them. I say all the time that I think that a lot of people that are having a hard time with the idea of absolute truths, like that there's only 2 genders and then there's a small minority of people with genetic mutations, when they have a hard time with reality, I'd like them to, either box or get on the floor and roll with me. One good choking out, or several. I tell you what, I've had family members who needed to be choked several times because they just could not understand how they were screwing up. When that happens, and it's all in context, right? It's in context of grappling. When that happens, it forces them to confront bad paradigms. And what do I mean by a bad paradigm? Bad paradigms produce bad attitudes. Bad attitudes yield bad results. And that's as plain as it gets. Bad attitude, bad results. And where do people get bad attitudes from? Well, they're taught them. They're taught them by an impoverished mindset. They're taught them by a victim mindset, a mindset that says that all the power is outside of me and all the blame therefore is outside of me, when we all know that the law of karma starts with you. It's an imprint on yourself, right? If somebody cuts you open, they're going to find it, but you can't like move to some far off place like Hawaii or Tahiti and just expect that your problems won't follow you. They will exactly follow you. Your spending habits will follow you. Your loser's limp will follow you. All the things that construct the lead, or if you like the modern analogy, the lemons in your life will just follow you. So the only real solution for that is discipline. And self-discipline is the superior model. But this guy, you have to bear in mind, he's being paid $20,000 to bring people in, and they are super lost. They've tried meditation, and they've tried drugs, and they've tried sex, and they've tried everything under the sun to fulfill that need except self-discipline. And they don't know how to give themselves self-discipline, right? They don't go boxing or wrestling or hiking or go to hot yoga class or something like that. These people, their form of self-discipline is all physical, but it's not on the mental, spiritual level. And so without that self-discipline, the ability to say no to themselves and to their immediate partner, if necessary, right, it is healthy for a man to be able to tell a woman no. And it's also healthy for a woman to be able to say no and actually be capable of putting up that barrier. That's a healthy thing in a relationship. That's called boundaries. And a lot of people are codependent, and they don't know how to have boundaries. And that can lead people down a bad path. So the ability to have that kind of discipline is of inestimable value. Most of his success will be due to that. Very little will be due to the abusive paradigm. In fact, it might be a little bit, what you would say, I guess, inspirational, that despite the history of abuse throughout his life and that he gives to other people, he's able to be successful and have a healthy marriage. I mean, his marriage has been going for a long, long time, and she's a tough-minded woman who she was raised by nuns, so she knows all about discipline. And like me, they've already raised their kids, but in corporal punishment. Corporal punishment is absolutely necessary to keep the immune system and the mind sharp on reality, because this is not necessarily a safe reality. I mean, I'm safe in this room right now, unless a meteor were to hit the house, but reality itself is not safe. And there's all sorts of various threats, from chaos to mobs, cyber attacks, fraud identity, kidnap, rape. I mean, I was watching a video earlier on active self-protection, and a man was in a donut shop. He was literally just buying donuts. There was no altercation. The other guy walks in, he's acting real funny, but the guy didn't notice he's buying donuts. There's no reason for him to be in a self-defense mode. And then the guy disappears from the camera, and then suddenly he reappears. There's no words exchanged between them. He reappears and stabbed the man in the back 3 times, just with a big old knife. Luckily, the guy was kind of, not pudgy, but he was just stocky, and it didn't go through to his lungs. He didn't have life-threatening injuries. He was able to go to the hospital and get healed. But 3 times, and the blade went in. You could see the blade go in, and he stabbed him 3 times and left. Now, he's wearing a PlayStation hat. My assumption is he was living out some kind of Grand Theft Auto fantasy. California, good luck to you. I don't know what to do with that one. It's just crazy. But that's life, you know. And I'll link that video down below, because I think it's important that you realize you can't prepare for literally everything. Chaos is chaos for a reason. But what can self-discipline do? First of all, it can hone the mind and make you sharp, make you aware often enough that you're going to mitigate most problems. Secondly, it's going to present you with the ability to critique yourself and through critical thinking, find weaknesses and improve on those weaknesses. Now, you're going to screw up. I screw up. I screw up all the time. I screw up health-wise. I screw up in life. I mean, it's the way it goes. You screw up being a parent. You screw up writing your homework. You screw up taking your tests. You're going to screw up. And guess what? That's a good thing, because you're going to learn more by losing than by winning. Okay, I'm going to say that again. You're going to learn more by losing than by winning. So when I see Dan Pena, to me, I'm laughing. You know, if I was in that room, I mean, I'd be laughing until he tried. Then I'd say, "Look, man, honestly, I had a martial arts master's double medal. He's way more scary than you'll ever be. You can cut that out. I mean, if you don't want to, we could box, and you're going to lose. I'm going to Osotogari you right through the floor. But how about we just skip this part and get to the thing, to the networking and how do I create $1 million business? I wouldn't attend this guy's thing because I think there are more efficient ways to go through life than that. I think it's unhealthy spiritually. I'd much rather attend something by, like I say, the guy from Valuetainment. I'm not into cults of personality, so I probably wouldn't go to a Tony Robbins thing, but I do appreciate that he is a successful person and that he has things to teach. One of my favorite self-help gurus was a man who was full of love from all accounts that I can see, and that was Jim Rohn. I absolutely love and adore. I sometimes the quotes. I listen to that CD from him all the time when I was in my 20s, and the words just come into my head unbidden. Different things that have to do with business and success. So find somebody that you appreciate, that you like. And again, the teacher and the student will be attracted. If you're attracted to people like Dan Pena, all the more you probably do need that extra discipline. You probably are really weak inside, or maybe you need something. Maybe he reminds you of your father, your grandfather, and there's a connection there. For me, it's entertainment. And I'm not into super abuse. Like if you watch, what's that Kitchen Nightmares guy, Chef Ramsay. If you watch him on like repeat, just insulting people, it's kind of gross. You know what I mean? But in context, usually it's something that person needed to hear. One time I heard this. He took a taste out of this Hell's Kitchen dish, and he said, "Where'd you come up with this?" And the guy said, "Well, I literally, pulled it out of my ass." And he said, "Well, put it right back." And I was like, "Oh, savage!" It was true. The guy had no sense of flavor, and he wasn't any good. I think it was absolutely the right thing for him to say at that moment, because it quickly got to the point of, hey, you don't know what you're doing. Stop improvising and learn how to be an actual chef. But granted, I'm just not into a lot of over-the-top abuse. I've had students that I've had to push harder, and I do that so that if they can't make it, they just leave. And then I've had other students that I have been patient because they have problems. And when they have problems, I'm a little bit more empathetic and sympathetic, that they have an energy block inside them that's keeping them from receiving the information. They want the information. That's why they're there. They want the information. They just can't receive that information because of, it's something called oblivion, but it's a dullness that overcomes. A quick story, there's a Buddhist story where there's two brothers, and one of them he's just really dumb, and he can't memorize the sutras and everything, so eventually he's causing so many problems at the temple. The older brother, who is one of the heads at the temple, asks him to leave. He goes away crying, and he runs into the Buddha, and the Buddha says, "Why are you crying, my son?" And he says, "I'm too stupid to learn all the sutras, etc." And the Buddha says, "Here, take this white cloth and rub it together like this." When he does, he sees that it turns dirty. He says, "Keep rubbing that cloth, wash the cloth, keep rubbing it until it stops turning dirty." And he takes him back to the temple. In time, the cloth stops turning, and the man is able to memorize all sorts of sutras and eventually replace his brother as the head in the temple. And this illustrates that all of our problems come from inside of us. They don't come from other people. I just cupped someone the other day, and literally gray sludge came out into the cup. We are kind of dirty beings. We produce metabolic waste, and we create problems wherever we go, what are called karmic outflows. Trouble is going to find you. But here's the neat thing. Humans might be the problem, but they're also the solution. You can be the solution in your own life, and you can be the solution in your family and in your business. Okay, so now I've rambled enough about all that. I just want to mention that I am just finishing up something very exciting. It's the beginning of EPMC's science fiction division. So as you remember, EPMC's extended plasma electromagnetic cosmology. So the plasma electromagnetic cosmology is physics and chemistry, and then the extended is usually archaeology, discussions of anthropology, world history, mythos, religion, cultural topics, the relation between the Avengers and Marvel stories and the end of the world schemes, etc. So the science fiction division, this paper is not really fiction in the sense of like it's a fantasy fiction. It's fiction in that all the things I'm describing just haven't happened yet. Where things have happened, I cite those things. There's probably like 100 citations in the paper. I'm really proud of it. Even on my worst day, the flat earthers and the mainstream cosmologists could not handle me because I have all these facts, and I've built an engine, in the EU gateway so that I could quickly search these facts and cite them. Although this time I had to use a lot of Google because it was a lot of things that were all over the place. So that forms the framework of technology and information and how I see us escaping our own self-created problems and getting to the really interesting stuff out in our solar system. So the book series that will come out of that will utilize the technical names from the paper. So I hope when it gets released, which will be very soon on my academia, which I will also link, that you will go and check it out. Obviously, you can critique it. It's EPMC, right? So it's open source. Guess what? You can take that same framework and write your own science fiction stories. My gift to you, no problem. Write your own stories. Just cite where you got the inspiration from. Cite the paper or cite the other papers that are in my bibliography so that people know that you're basing it on some type of framework and reality. And we can avoid doing what the mainstream did, which is just take art, cram it into science, and call that science, which is, of course, not true. We can create art from science, but we should never be creating science from art. Life mimics, art mimics life, and science mimics life, but science is not supposed to mimic art. Okay, so that's just my personal opinion. All right, if you like this video, hit the like, share, and subscribe. Remember, most of my stuff is now going to be going to Subscribestar. That's where I've been posting things from this channel. So go on over to the Subscribestar and join. You can help me to build the future. And also, there's going to be there's a new article by me in the Ancient Kentucky newsletter. So again, I'll link that in the description to the Ancient Kentucky. Please join. It's not very much money. It's like $10 a year for a whole household to get an email. And it's absolutely a unique kind of organization with a unique kind of mission to talk about things that are not allowed to be talked about. Speaking of archaeology news, the University of Kentucky, which is my alma mater, just fired 7 archaeologists and anthropologists from the Office of State Archaeology, including my contact over there. So I have to start all over with going in and getting contacts. Here's my plan. I'm just going to walk in the building and just, boom, hey, who are you? What happened? And what's going on here? And we'll see how that goes. And I will see you in another video.